Hey everybody, welcome to the Cow. I'm Mark Shell. Cow is the church on wheels. And so I absolutely appreciate you guys chiming in, tuning in this morning, hearing the message, and being investigatory over what I teach. I don't mind you studying it out. I want to say thank you so much, partners of the ministry, your support of the ministry. I am in Jacksonville, Illinois this weekend. We had a wonderful service last night at the Lord's congregation, and this morning at 10 o'clock, tonight at 6 p.m., I have been coming up here, I don't know, about 32 years, I guess. So it's been a while. I love relationships. And so I just wanted to say thank you for doing that. You are sowing seed here, and you'll see the harvest. And so I appreciate that so much. I want to get right into this. And I told my wife, I said, I think I'm going to do another one on happiness. You can't exhaust happiness. And so I, of course, yesterday morning woke up to the news of what was happening in Israel. And I heard commentator after commentator, guest after guest, make this statement: pray for Israel. I'm not against that. Pray for Israel. But I am the guy that likes to go to the root of the problem. Stop complaining about the fruit the tree is producing. Go to the root and cut it down. That's just my demeanor. You show me a problem, and I want to get to the root of it. And yes, I am not, how do I say this? I guess I'm old enough to just not care what people think. I don't teach what I teach for money. I don't prostitute truth like that. Yes, I pray for Israel. But my first thought was, thank you, Joe. You just gave money to somebody that wants to blow somebody else up, and then, pray for them. Well, you're a numbnut. But I didn't stop there. I want to go to the root. I'm not going to blame Joe Biden. I'm going to blame the believers that voted these numbnuts into office. And so, yeah, you can pray for Israel at your church service this morning, and that's great. But if you vote that way again, how can you bind what you allow? So that took me to deeper studies. 81% of America confesses to believe in God. 44% vote Democratic. 37% vote Republican. Now, whichever side you're on, you do your thing. But don't pray about what you allow. Don't even go there. It is an absolute waste of time. And so then that got me thinking. I'm just telling you how I trace down messages. Many people are just locked into the way they were raised. When in God's name are you going to grow up and have your own convictions? Be yourself. And so I wanted to teach this morning on how to be happy. You've got to make plans to be happy. Well, Mark, I don't know. We've got a vacation planned. Okay, You'll be happy for a week, but why not be happy every day of your life? And I'm seeing you guys chime in. And Clark, I'm glad you're watching, man. You won't go to hell this morning. So I appreciate that very much. But happiness is not an event. It ought to be a lifestyle. So I want to teach you this morning how to be happy, because there are a lot of people that are unhappy, and I hate it. I detest it. The numbnuts in the Middle East. And I was telling my buddy Mark down in Florida yesterday, I said, my God, imagine if Abraham had have kept his robe on and not met with Hagar. You wouldn't have all these Palestinians that are out against Israel. Do you realize a lot of the battles we face are because our priorities were wrong? And no, I'm not running for office. And yes, I'm just old enough to not care. I don't want to lose support of anybody, but doggone it, I ain't going to suck up to you for money. I ain't going to do it. I want a believing nation to get their priorities right. A lot of our unhappiness is because our priorities are wrong. So then I began to study, and I'm taking you through the progress of how I developed these messages. Okay, you can pray for Israel, or you could nip the problem at the bud. Well, it's Hamas, it's Hezbollah, it's Joe Biden. It's none of those. It's the people who put these people in office. And so now I've got to go back to the believers, to the church. I have got to go back to the church, because whether you believe it or not, you study the scripture, you study the history of the church, and everything the world is going through is what the believer has allowed. And so, of course, with what's going on, you'll hear people, ministers with reverend or doctor in front of their name, get online. They'll get in their pulpit this morning. Jesus is coming any minute. Well, numbnut, you're allowing it. You're allowing it. I remember when Parker, my youngest son, was real little, we sent him to a Christian school of the denomination I was raised in. He said, on the way back, he was just a little guy. I said, how'd school go today, son? He's in the back seat. He said, it was good. He said, Dad, they were talking about us leaving the earth, but I kind of like it here. I said, why don't you just stay here and rule, son? He said, that's not what you teach. I said, no, it's not, son. You're supposed to conquer where you are. But if your priorities are wrong, you're going to be unhappy in life. Of course, you want to escape the earth if you don't know who you are. God gave us this earth. And so then I began to study, and I'll give this to you quickly because I got to go. I thought, okay, priority means to make some things more important than others. And you can tell me, oh, that's my priority. But if your actions are different, it's not a priority, because your actions don't even need words. Your actions prove your priority. See, when I asked my wife to marry me, and she said yes. Now, I love my boys, Derek and Parker, Lexi, my grandson, Cade. I love them. But Brenda became my priority. I love my dad. I love my brother. Would I do anything for any of my family? I would die for them. But Brenda is my priority. See, a lot of people say, well, I'm a Christian. But being a Christian, being Christ-like, has not yet become a priority, because insecure people, now I'm going to go back to where I was, and if you don't like the politics, I'd say go watch something funny, but I'm going to tell you the truth. People, and it blew my mind that 44% of people that say they believe in God would actually vote for people that accelerate abortion at late term. Because they're insecure. Well, we want government help. Then I began to wonder, why do people need so much government help? Take it back to the people standing in pulpits that only teach the law and getting out of here, instead of people that will tell you who you are in Christ and that you are independently in authority of this earth, and teach the grace and the goodness of God. And maybe I'm on a rant this morning, and I apologize if you'll get offended, but if you do, you're just insecure. But you've got to realize and come to an awareness, an awakening, that, you know what, God, I was put here to rule this earth. That's going to change the way you see things. I'm not saying you've got to be Republican, but my God, we are praying for things we shouldn't have to pray for. And then if it don't happen, well, God didn't want it to happen. Well, no, that's not it. It's a priority issue. And so I started studying, well, what's the opposite of priority? By definition, it's pathetic, silly, shallow. It's ignorable. It's miserable. And it's unsubstantial. Oh my God. Have you ever felt unsubstantial? I have. Have you ever felt ignorable? I have. It just let me know I'm not a priority. So Moses himself, I'll give you scripture, Moses himself had great priorities, but he never made it to the promised land because his priorities didn't change with his life cycle. Are your priorities changing with your life cycle? Some of you are still voting for these numbnuts that totally don't go with what you were raised to believe, but you just roll with it because you never changed your priorities with your life cycle. How many counseling sessions have I had with couples where they have division because they praised their children? If you're praising the fruit of what you created, you're going to have marital problems. Now, when those babies are little, that's your priority. But I've got a 21-year-old and a 35-year-old. They're not my priorities anymore. They have taken rank beneath my wife. My dad, who is getting ready to be 87, I love my dad. I would die for my dad. I would stand and defend my dad. But he is not my priority. And we've got people that are not entering the promises of God because they're not changing their priorities with the cycle of life. And so don't set yourself up for failure. America is setting itself up for failure, not because of Joe Biden or the Islamics in the Congress and the Senate. That's not their fault. That's their priorities. It's the people who put them in office. Dear Jesus, people, if there's 81% of Americans that believe in God, how in God's name is evil happening? It's because there are believers that their priorities did not change with their life cycle. Well, Mark, how do I change that life cycle? You can't, but you can change your priorities with the cycle of life. You've got to sit down and identify your priorities and your real goals. You've got to have goals. Priorities are proof you have a goal. If your goal is to please somebody, you're going to prioritize everything to reach that goal. You've got to make a plan. If a goal meant enough to you, you do whatever you do to make it happen. You do whatever you do and can do to make something happen. Well, that's just proof it's a priority. You've got to set some milestones and even change little things. Only you can change your priorities. You can't change my priorities. I can't change yours. You've got to prioritize your own life. A priority literally is just a thing that's regarded as more important than another. Goals and actions are proof of priorities. But if your priorities did not change with your life cycle, I counsel couples that the man never left his father and mother. The woman never left her father and mother. I counsel couples that the man and woman still coddle their children even though they're grown. In other words, when a priority is set, nothing else is important. And so many counseling sessions I've had with couples, well, I just don't feel important. I just don't feel important. I've been through it. I've had wrong priorities in my life. But as you change with the life cycle, you begin to understand the power of priorities. Happiness begins, and that's the message. How can I become happy? You've got to start with new priorities. Priorities help you to choose what you need to focus on first. First. Do you hear me? First. When I figured out my top priorities, it helped me realize I don't have to do everything. Now I just want to tell someone no. I have no problem using the N word. No. I can't do that. You know, when I tell my wife, I said, hey, when I'm on the phone with you, if Parker calls in, if Derek calls in, I just send the call to voicemail and I get right back with them. I am training my boys how to treat their spouse as a priority, because I wasn't put here to create those boys. I was put here to let people know what true love is and what true happiness is. I don't feel guilty for saying no, and it doesn't feel like I'm making excuses to get out of something. I just know my priorities. I am one happy man. And when you realize your self-value is not given by anyone but you, insecure people want to do everything everyone asks of them to feel value. Many people are insecure and they don't know they're insecure. I'm kind of like Medea. I'm bad all by myself, baby. I am bad all by myself. And so you may be wondering, well, Mark, dear God, are my priorities wrong? Okay. Psychologically speaking, they say when you feel overwhelmed, you feel like, oh my God, I got to do this. let me put it this way. I have never been burdened with happiness. Okay? When you know what you're asked to do is going to take you up, well, Mark, that's just a sacrifice. Oh, okay. I do things that I really don't want to do to make somebody else happy. But needy people, insecure people, will keep on asking you to do it because they have no value. And your obedience to their request feeds their value. If you don't feel valuable by yourself, my God, somebody's needing to hear this. You need to move on. Yeah, but Mark, that's my son. Dear Jesus, woman, he's 30 years old. Tell him to get his butt off of your couch, eating your chips, go get a job, and get some self-value. That's it. What's happening in Israel wouldn't be happening in Israel if the believers were taught this. You've got to be happy. Stand up for yourself. Well, Mark, I really don't know. Are my priorities wrong? Do you procrastinate doing what you've been asked to do? Then your priorities are wrong. You only procrastinate things that are not a priority. Now, this is simple, but oh my God, it ought to be educatorial. If your priorities are wrong, you procrastinate the things that are not a priority. Why can't you just say no? Your priorities are wrong if you neglect the essential areas of your life, like your relationship with God, your health, your family, your spouse. What is the top priority in your life? And then go down from there. Well, how do I know how to make that list? What creates a burden to do? Put it on the bottom of the list. What stresses you out to do? Put it on the bottom of the list. See, we have got to change with the cycle of life. Paul said, when I was a child, I thought like a child, but when I became a man, I started thinking differently. Many of you, Israel is happening today because America appears weak. We've got a numbnut in administration, many numbnuts. And that's just my opinion. You vote how you want to, but doggone it, don't get in my prayer line about this country if you voted that way. And that is very straightforward, and you may have never heard a pastor tell you that, but you cannot bind what you allow. Priorities of believers have been so screwed up for so many years that we've got preachers out there hoodwinking people with, all this catastrophe at the end and a huge error in eschatological teaching. Holy smokes, Batman, Catwoman, listen to me. Get your priorities right, and you'll be in this world, but not of this world. Priorities and happiness is self-conjured. I can't tell you what your priorities are. Only you can determine that. Ma'am, if you're having marital problems, check yourself. Is your husband your priority? Sir, if you're having problems with your wife, check if your wife is your priority. Yes, little kids in the house, that's your priority, watching over them. But teach your kids young how to set their priorities, that your spouse, and that's what Brenda and I want to do. I want to teach my boys that your spouse is your priority. When she said yes to marrying me, everyone else slipped in rank. I can be on the phone with somebody. I was on the phone with a friend in Indiana the other day, and I said, hey, my wife's calling. I'll get back with you. Now, what that does, I don't have to say, oh, I love my wife. It lets them know, oh, my God, maybe I ought to start doing that with my wife. Because when people feel neglected, you've got all the crap we've got today in America. Everybody wants to be recognized because they feel neglected. Well, I'm a girl. I'm a boy. Let me see. You know, it's pretty simple. It really is. Show me the money. Priorities can't be forced by other people, or it won't be lasting. It's got to be a self-desire based on what you consider valuable. So look at the life of Jesus. How did he prioritize his time? When he was young, his priority was to help his dad, earthly dad, Joseph. That was his priority. Help Joe. Be a carpenter. But when he was baptized in the River Jordan by John, his priority changed. Mark, what's the answer for America? Change your priorities, and it'll change your votes. There's going to be a buttload of prayer meetings going on for Israel. And again, I love Israel. I'm not the bastard in the back of the bus because a Jew got saved. I love Israel. I love Poland. I love Russia. I love Argentina. I love Africa. God doesn't have a preferred people. He's not a respecter of person. But there's going to be a lot of church services where people are praying and begging God. But if we just had our priorities right, we'd vote right. And so we bring problems on us and then blame God they didn't get solved. So now we got to get out of here. It is amazing to me. It is amazing to me. But when Jesus was baptized, his priority was to reveal his calling. He no longer had a priority of carpentry. His priority changed. When he was 33, he prioritized fulfilling his purpose. And so, if your priorities don't change with the cycle of life, you are headed to an attack that all you can do is mourn about, like we're mourning the attack in Israel. So Jesus established priorities, you know. So Mark, okay, how do I establish my priorities? You've got to rank what is meaningful in your life. You've got to reflect. Well, how do I know what's important in my life? What do you talk about the most? That's what's important to you. Consider all the most important people in your life. Identify what you enjoy doing the most. Okay, I've got it. No, wait. Time spent is proof of your priority. That's the telltale. How much time do you spend with what you think is important? How important is your time, then that's the commodity you give to your priority. Well, Mark, sounds like happiness requires change. It does. And I began to study the psychological reasoning why people don't want to change. And the bottom line is this: they fear losing the familiar. When you get over the fear of losing the familiar. Well, Mark, I've always put my kids first. I've always put my job first. I've always put this first. And if I really want this to be my priority, but what? But you fear losing what is familiar to you. And I've got to go. But I did have some thoughts. Don't miss your calling to be happy in life. When God said, let there be light, that word light in the English is from the Hebrew word ore. It means let there be happiness. Don't miss your calling to be happy in life. How do I do that, Mark? Reevaluate your purpose. Reinvestigate the stage of life you're in. Reinstitute your calling to be happy. That's the witness that will draw other people to you. My God, stop trying to win people with Bible tracts on urinals about going to heaven or going to hell. If they just see you happy, this world is looking for happy. I don't need a Bible tract scaring the hell out of people. I just need to be happy. My life cycle has changed, and thank God, I have changed with it. I'm a happy man. You've got to reinstitute your calling to be happy, and you've got to renew your life by redoing your priorities. So that's how you become happy. Redo your priorities. And the time you spend with each one gives it the rank of prioritization in your life. I hope you all got something. I have got to run. Go to markshellministries.com. There is so much product on there and teaching. Don't forget to share this around. And I keep seeing you guys chime in. I can't even through my bifocals see all the names, but I always go back and look. So thank you for your comments. If you have any questions, email me at markshellministries@gmail.com. If you've never become a partner with the ministry, I don't have them send out t-shirts and mugs and necklaces, and some people do, and that's fine. That is fine. But I don't think I have to sell the gospel. I think if you believe in what is being taught, you support it. So thank you for sending me here to Jacksonville. Next weekend, I will be back in Tulsa. And then the next weekend, Brenda and I will be in Washington, D.C. area, Woodbridge, Virginia, with Pastor T.J. Hall at the Connection Church. They meet at the Garfield High School. And then the next weekend, I'll be with my friend Terry Tripp, and I'll be speaking Saturday night on the 28th, and Terry will speak Sunday morning on the 29th at Ronnie Pierce's church, and I don't have that information in front of me. And then the next weekend will be down in Austin, Texas area, at Pastor Jerry Edmonds' church there in Bastrop or Elgin, Texas. And so, and then the next weekend, I'll be somewhere else. We'll just have to roll with that. And thank God the schedule is building back up. It has been a season. Believe me, it has been a season, but the seed always works. And I am a happy man because I prioritized my life according to the changing of the cycle. You all be blessed. I will see you next Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time.